Good morning, dear friends, and welcome to Lox Bagels on Life, where you bring the lox and the bagels, and I try to share some life messages from our tradition and the Torah. Today we'll have a slightly shorter program, and before I do that, I notice there's this big blotch of light behind me coming from the sun. That's kind of one of the things that happen when you do a Sunday morning program. So if there are any live streamers, bloggers, or what do you call them, YouTubers, gamers, people that can help me deal with that light situation, I will gladly appreciate your comments. You know, we're here to spread the light, but sometimes too much light can be a distraction. So just get in touch with me afterwards, and I'd appreciate your insight and your input. But my friends, today I want to share a very insightful message that I gleaned yesterday at Shul. You know, what is true beauty? What is true progress? How do you know if you're really making progress? There's a very, very interesting insight that I saw in yesterday's Torah portion that I'd like to share with you. And that is when the Torah describes two of our matriarchs, Rachel and Leah, or in the correct chronological order, it was Leah and Rachel. Leah is the older one, and Rachel is the younger of two sisters. And when Jacob meets Rachel, who he meets first, the Torah is very clear how pretty and beautiful and gorgeous of a woman Rachel was, in fact. Then when the Torah introduces her sister Leah, the Torah uses a term, ve'ene Leah rakot, that the eyes of Leah were tender, as others translate that, but meaning there was an issue. They weren't as beautiful, as charming, as bright, and as shiny as Rachel, her younger sister's eyes. And the Torah goes to make a distinction. However, Rachel was beautiful. Now, my question is, Torah is a book of spirituality. Beauty is a beautiful thing to have. It's a great virtue. But why is the Torah making such an issue about physical external features of the woman who our patriarch Jacob would marry, as opposed to focusing more on the character and the personality of these two individuals? And the Torah could have easily just overlooked the physical features of these two individuals, these two women, and the story would have continued the same. Jacob comes, he wants to marry a younger daughter, a younger sister. The tradition in that family was you marry the older. What difference does it make if she's beautiful, gorgeous, or not? And here we have a very, very important message in our Torah. And the Torah is trying to teach us about valuing experiences of life. See, the characteristics that the Torah is describing of Rachel and Leah are not merely characteristics of external physical beauty, but it talks more of spiritual personality. Certain people have a life that is so beautiful internally. Everything is just so smooth. They grow, they develop, they mature, they have great character, great interactions with people. They seem just to go through life sailing along in such a very harmonious and beautiful way. Others, most of us, have challenges. Life isn't that easy. We always get some hiccups, have to go over some speed bumps, and even have our setbacks. Why were Leah's eyes tender and not as beautiful, the Midrash says? Because she was very challenged. She has certain internal struggles that she had to deal with that caused her to cry very often. Struggles that had to deal with this whole relationship issue of who she was going to marry. So she didn't have an easy life, Leah. And here the Torah is trying to tell us that there's two different personalities. And what do we wish for? We always wish to have life easier than we have it. But does that mean if it's challenging that there's a flaw or there's a problem? Not at all. Because as we continue to read the portion of the Torah, of the two sisters, Rachel and Leah, who gave birth to the majority of the 12 tribes, whose sons and children were the majority of the foundation of the future Jewish people? It was Leah's children. Leah had the majority of the children of Jacob, of the 12 tribes. And what the Torah is trying to tell us here is a very important message. Number one, The Torah tells us that Leah was the older of the two sisters. And as the Talmud says, that God favors, God appreciates the level of accomplishment of someone who overcame a challenge is far superior than the one who never had the challenge to begin with. So challenges are there to make us grow. If God blesses you and you don't have challenges, there are other purposes in what you are to live for. But challenging life, that's what life is made of. And in fact, when you overcome that challenge and the struggle, you can create so much more and do so much better had you not had that struggle to begin with. As the saying goes, one step back, two steps forward. Sometimes we need to take the step back. Sometimes we need to go through that challenging time to be able to move forward and be even more productive had we not had that challenge in our life. Do you ever dance? What does a beautiful dance look like? If the two dancers are always hugging each other and close to each other, that doesn't project any beauty in the art of the dance. It's when the dancers separate further and then come closer together with greater energy. That's what creates the beauty. It's the steps back from which you pivot closer to each other that creates the symmetry and the flow of a beautiful dance. So, my friends, when we go through times that we feel like we're taking a step back, or sometimes we may feel that God has taken a step back, don't despair. That is the message of the story of Leah, that sometimes externally, something may seem not as beautiful as you would like. But if you connect to it and you move forward and you pivot from that backward step into a forward movement, you will see how much greater and how much more productive you can truly be. So, my dear friends, there's no one in this world that today, alive, that isn't living the life challenges of a Leah mode of life. We've all been taking a step back. The entire universe has taken a step back. My dear friends, let us not look at this as a step back, but just as a moment in time, a moment in our life, where we pivot from the backward moment to something that will be so much greater had we not have this challenge. As I heard in the news today, now is not the time for pandemic or COVID fatigue. And they were talking about physical ideas, but even spiritually and emotionally. It's been a long journey and a long track, and maybe more than one step backwards. But let's not give up. Let's stay the course. Let's keep strong. Let's keep focused. Let's be positive. Let's remember that every step in the beauty of a dance is backward movement to move forward in a greater way. My dear friends, have a wonderful week. Have a meaningful week. Have a successful week. And I hope that the steps that we have taken backwards will always lead us to the greatest step forward, a step forward that we never even imagined can ever happen in our lives. Take care and have a wonderful day.